Those of you who've been with us so far this week will know that we've used Christmas week to reflect on several sermons that were preached by a man by the name of Isaiah 800 years before the birth of Jesus. He was a man who was gifted by God to speak in advance about the event that we celebrate tonight. We noted his first sermon, in which he predicted that one day a virgin would have a baby boy who would be God in human form. We considered a second sermon of his, in which he predicted that this little child would grow up and reign forever on his ancestor David's throne, that this child would be one whose words would be the supreme place to learn of God, since he himself was God and was himself both God all-powerful and God all-compassionate. On these last two occasions that we share together in Christmas week, tonight and tomorrow morning, I just want to briefly look at two other sermons by this man Isaiah. And the first one is some words that we find in the 42nd chapter of the prophecy of Isaiah. And the words are this: "Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out. In faithfulness he will bring forth justice. He will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on the earth. In his law the islands will put their trust." Now, it's clear, I think, that Isaiah is speaking about the same person, because he is speaking again about one who will have an everlasting reign. But the emphasis here is less upon his kingship than upon the title that he is given as the servant. "Here is my servant," the prophet says. He comes to serve the world he has entered. He comes to serve the world, not simply to lord it over it. So in this picture that I've just read to you, we have a picture of authority mixed with gentleness. Here is one who will not hector people into submission. He will not shout or cry out or raise his voice in the streets. He will deal tenderly with the damaged and the fragile. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smouldering wick he will not snuff out. His rule will be achieved not by coercion, but by tender winsomeness. And in doing so, he will be accompanied by two things. First of all, there is reference to the divine stamp of delighted approval and empowerment. "Here is my servant whom I uphold, my chosen one, in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him." And so it is, he receives not only the divine stamp of approval, which of course were echoed in those words that were heard at Jesus' baptism: "This is my beloved Son, hear him." But he is here seen to represent and fulfill the plans of God himself. "He is my chosen one. He is the one I uphold. He is the one whom I have sent, who has gone forth in my name to accomplish my purposes." It's a beautiful picture of a God who stoops to serve, who tenderly invites rather than forcefully coerces, a God who longs that all might find themselves under the universal rule of the servant king. And such is King Jesus, and his tender invitation to the weak and vulnerable, as well as those who revel in their own sense of power and strength, remains. Come to me. My yoke is easy, my burden light, and you will find rest for your souls.